Working in the shop, whether it's your profession or your hobby, can be extremely dangerous. In this video, we'll go over 7 shop disasters that have happened in our own shop and could happen in your shop as well. We'll also talk about how to avoid them. So our first shop disaster happened a couple months ago when we started this Ford tractor up. There was a leak in the gas line that we did not know about, and when we started the tractor, instead of it actually starting, it went up in flames. Now we have fire extinguishers at both ends of the shop, which we were able to quickly grab and put that fire out. You'll see that the tractor's still intact, our barn's still here. We had a little bit of hairs that were singed, but all in all, we got the fire out and it was good because we had a fire extinguisher that we were ready to use. Now this is a type of fire extinguisher that we have in our shop. There's lots of different types of fire extinguishers that you can purchase. This one is a mess to clean up, but it got the fire out, so that's okay. Make sure that your fire extinguisher is charged and you know how to use it. This one, you pull the ring out, push the handle down, point, and put the fire out. Make sure that you have one. Now, if you cook like I do, you might also want to have one of those in the kitchen because fires can happen in the kitchen just as easily as they can happen in the shop. Now also in your parts washer, that's a spot where you would maybe have a fire that you wouldn't expect. So if you put a carburetor in your parts washer and it had some gas in it, now you've contaminated the fluid that is in your parts washer, and when you scrub on it, that could flame up. Carb cleaner is also extremely flammable. So be mindful of changing your fluid that's in your parts washer so that it doesn't get contaminated as quickly because it can start on fire for you as well. Be mindful of things that can start on fire in your shop and make sure that you have a fire extinguisher so that you can put a fire out. The next thing that you want to be aware of is the air hose in your shop. Don't leave it laying on the ground where you can drive over it or it can get stuck on a loader bucket or anything, because then it can get cut. And then if it does, all of that pressure, 100 pounds or more that's in your hose, goes and it can whack you in the face or anything like that. It can be extremely dangerous. So when you're done using it, just wind it back up on the handle of your compressor or maybe even on a reel like this one so that it doesn't get cut. Here's another shop disaster that's about to happen. When you use the grinder, it will shoot off sparks. It can easily ignite any type of greasy rag like these that are behind my grinder, an oil-soaked bench, things like carburetor cleaner or engine starting fluid, open containers of oil. All of those things will easily ignite with a little spark that touches it. So be very mindful of your surroundings. When you use a grinder, you should also have a guard or a shield over it to provide more protection from the grinding wheel so that you don't get cut on it yourself. If you use a bigger grinder like this one or a cutoff saw like I have here, these sparks are just huge. They'll reach the wall. You have to be so careful of your surroundings when you use items like this that shoot off sparks. Okay. Now when working on your tractor, it's absolutely essential that you remove the ground battery cable first before your other terminal. Now you can see on this tractor that this wire is grounded because you can follow it around and the other end connects to the chassis of the tractor. It may depend differently if your ground cable is positive or negative. That's not the point, removing the positive or the negative. You have to remove whichever one is ground. So you can remove this one first. You can just loosen it up with a wrench and then it will pull off. Then once you have the ground terminal removed, now your other terminal is no longer active. If you didn't do that, if you didn't remove your ground cable first and you're working on this one, it's active. So if you touch your wrench when you're working on it and you come up here and you touch the wrench to your gas tank, it could go into instant flames. Also, if you have both of your battery cables connected and your wrench touches from one to the other, it can arc. There's lots of dangers within the battery of your tractor, but they can all be avoided if you remove the ground cable first. When you split a tractor or you take a wheel off for any type of repair, you'll obviously use a jack. Now you can use a jack to lift the tractor up, but then be sure that you use a set of jack stands to secure that hold. Don't trust only in the strength of the jack because that can have some more adjustment, and a jack stand is so much safer. Also, when you have the wheels off the tractor, even though it's jacked up, it still could move a little bit, so be sure to use some wheel chocks. Now in our shop, we did use the jack to hold up a tractor and it slipped and fell. It wrecked the jack. You can see that it's warped here. The front axle is bent. So obviously we won't use this jack anymore, and we learned our lesson to always use some jack stands. When you're working on a tractor, they give off a lot of fumes. You can have the tractor running and before long, your whole entire shop is full of smoke and fumes. You don't want that to happen. So when you start a tractor and it's inside the shop, make sure that you have the door open or windows open, or turn on your exhaust fan if you have one. That way you don't have problems with exhaust in your shop. Use common sense when you're working in the shop. Obviously, with anything that has flying debris, you want to have safety glasses on to protect your eyes, even battery acid. Also, when you use torches, you might even want to have a tinted glass. And of course, when you're welding, always have a face shield on. Now, also be paying attention to other people that are in the shop that could turn around and look at your welding and get welding flash themselves, or even people that could come into the shop. You want to be aware of your surroundings and the people that are in the shop, not just yourself. Also, think about the clothes that you wear. You don't want to have anything that's loose that could get caught in moving parts on a tractor. This, you might have a fan in front of the tractor that's exposed. It's not as exposed on this John Deere, but other models, the fan's really exposed. There's also PTO on the back of most tractors that moves and is something that could definitely get caught on you. You want to make sure that your hair is pulled back, that you're wearing shoes that are maybe have a steel toe in them in case anything drops on your feet. Also, don't wear a necklace, and maybe don't even wear rings on your fingers. Also, think about wearing gloves. I know it can be hard to use gloves when you're trying to tighten down a screw or something that's really intricate. That's okay, take your gloves off. But when it's an easier task and there's bigger parts, definitely keep some gloves on. There's lots of oils and liquids that can get into your skin that aren't good for you. So if you wear gloves, that can help to keep them out of your body. Now, don't start a tractor when you're standing next to it and it's in gear. Always, always make sure that it is in neutral. I know so many people that have started a tractor accidentally when it was in gear, run themselves over, or ran into the wall of the barn. Always make sure that your tractor is in neutral when you start it, when you're standing next to it. Even if you're on the seat of the tractor, it should be in neutral as well. If you have spills on the floor of your shop, make sure that you clean them up quickly before you slip on them or someone else does. Use some floor dry to get all of that oil up off the floor so that nobody slips and falls on something that's spilled on the floor. Lastly, make sure that you have a first aid kit in the shop that's accessible and people that are in your shop know where it's at. This safety kit has ointments for burns, bandages, and it also has some eye washing liquid in case you get something in your eyes. Use common sense when you are working in the shop to avoid any shop disasters.